Hello and a very good day. Welcome to the webinar today. My name is Abhilash and I am from the AD Solutions team here at Manage Engine, and I would be your presenter for today. Now, before we go ahead and jump in and see what's in store for us, I would like to thank you all for joining in. Thank you so much for taking out the time. Now, I understand that these are troubled times and I hope all of you are indoors and safe. Now, before we go ahead and jump in, I would like to run a quick audio and a video check because I want to make sure that everybody out here today are able to hear me and are able to see the screen well. So I'll quickly start off with an audio check first. So if you can hear me, if my voice is well and audible and is reaching to you without any distortion, could you please use the Q&A tab in front of you and give me a confirmation, please? Just use the Q&A tab in front of you, say okay, say great, say good to go, so I can confirm that the audio is reaching to you well and clear. Thank you, Sheikh. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Philip. Thank you so much for your responses. Looks like everything is okay. And if you can see the video, can you give me just another confirmation, please? A confirmation for the video, if you can see the title and my email ID on the screen. Perfect. Looks like everything is okay and we are good to go. And before I begin, I would like to tell you that the entire session happening today is going to be recorded, and the recording would be sent to you on your email post the webinar. So if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A tab and keep them coming. And I will address your questions towards the end of the webinar. And even if I miss addressing your questions, please do not worry. You can always drop an email to me and I will get back to you on email at abi@manageengine.com anytime, and I would be more than happy to help you out. All right, so that's the housekeeping things. You can reach out to me using the Q&A tab anytime if you have any audio video issues or any questions that you would like to ask, and I will take your questions in the last 10 to 15 minutes. And if you have any questions later during the day post the webinar, just drop an email to me anytime and I will be more than happy to assist you. Okay. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in. The title or the topic for the webinar today is going to be Active Directory Security Fundamentals. Right now, the whole reason I chose to speak about this topic today is because Active Directory, or AD like we call it, has been used for many years now. Many organizations such as yours have been using Active Directory as a prime mode of authentication and authorization to resources that are located on-prem and to an extent the cloud as well. Right, and this is 2020. The cybersecurity landscape has changed. I am sure you would have heard of all the breaches and attacks that have been happening around you, and attacks have gotten simpler. Attacks have gotten sophisticated, which we will see today. And it's time that we give a second thought about our security status of our Active Directory infrastructure. Right? It's time we rethink it. It's time we redesign it. It's time we make a few changes. All right. So granted that many organizations have been adopting cloud services like Azure Active Directory, Amazon Web Services, or Google Cloud for that matter, but many companies, like we all know it, have been relying on Active Directory for a long time now, for many decades now. Most of their data, most of their resources are on premises, right? They are unwilling to move it to the cloud for security reasons, for compliance reasons. And the truth is, companies have been using AD for so long, their entire IT configuration is built around it, right? So even though cloud applications are gradually being adopted, in the near future, the complete shift to the cloud will take a lot of time to happen, right? So organizations, in short, are choosing for a hybrid AD infrastructure where they use a lot of on-premises and they take a little help from the cloud applications as well, applications like Azure Active Directory or Office 365. The aim of the webinar, or the focus of today's webinar, is to guide you hands-on through the different actions in Active Directory, misconfigurations, mismanagement activities that put your AD at risk, that can compromise your AD security, and the steps or the measures you need to take to mitigate the risk of being compromised. All right, to safeguard the keys to your kingdom. That's going to be the focus of the webinar. So let's take a look at the agenda and see what's in store for us. So we will be taking a look at how mismanagement or misconfiguration is a leading cause for breaches, right? Like I said, Active Directory can easily be misconfigured. A permission can easily be misassigned. Active Directory users can easily be mismanaged, right? So we'll take a look at how mismanagement can lead to a breach, and we'll take a look at a few examples, a few devastating breaches that have happened in 2020. In the second part of today's webinar, we'll take a look at the three popular and the three most important reasons why Active Directory hasn't been changed for a long time, requires an update, and requires modernization. And the third part of today's webinar, we will be taking a look at different problems in Active Directory, right? Different problems of an Active Directory infrastructure that could compromise your Active Directory security. We'll take a look at the native solutions or the native approach to circumvent these problems that we are going to look at. And we'll finally take a look at Manage Engine 8360, our web-based integrated IAM solution for effective Active Directory security, right? So I said that AD mismanagement is a leading cause for breaches, right? Now, why do I say that? I'm pretty sure you would have heard of these breaches. All the three breaches that you see on the slide right now, on your screen right now, have happened because of tiny misconfigurations or tiny errors. All right. The Twitter security breach that happened where I'm sure you would have heard of it. Attackers got hold of celebrity Twitter accounts like Elon Musk or Apple, and they were able to post out cryptocurrency scams from the Twitter account. And this happened because a hacker got access to the internal Twitter server that had direct administrative control over these celebrity Twitter accounts, right? The employees were subject to a social engineering attack, and the hacker was able to gain access to the credentials of the Twitter's administrative panel. That's how the Twitter attack happened. Honda was subject to a ransomware attack where Honda had to shut down its production for more than a month. And this happened because an end user's remote desktop credentials were exposed. Hackers got access, got hands on these remote desktop credentials, and they could perform a targeted ransomware attack. The Japanese telecommunications company NTT was subject to an Active Directory server breach, and this happened because an endpoint was compromised, and then the attacker could gradually move from the endpoint to a cloud server, to an internal server that was in close proximity with Active Directory, and finally could obtain access to the Active Directory domain controller, where the attacker could access details of more than 600 employees. Right, so all of these are Hacking Expo series, some work that we have done. All you got to do is simply click on it. And once you do, you will be taken to the blog where you can read into it and you can see how it happened, what's the reason it happened, and what steps you can take so it doesn't happen to you. All right, so that's just something I wanted to say. Now, 3 reasons why Active Directory is outdated and requires urgent updation or urgent modernization. Number 1 is a classic problem that we have been facing for a very, very long time now. Performing administration in Active Directory or management activities in Active Directory is extremely repetitive, is extremely manual and time consuming. Active Directory does not offer a centralized interface for you to perform administration, for you to manage activities, for you to give permissions, or even for you to view the permissions or revoke the granted permissions. That's the first problem, right? And obtaining visibility into Active Directory, obtaining insights, understanding the state of your Active Directory environment is also a big problem, because there is no way Active Directory gives you a choice to look into it and see and understand what's exactly happening with your Active Directory infrastructure. Now, an AD infrastructure is vast, right? An Active Directory provides you no tool or no interface for you to just look into it and understand what's happening. Last but not the least, auditing or monitoring Active Directory is not an easy thing to do, right? Because the classic event viewer problem, there are thousands of audit logs generated. There's a very large volume of audit logs generated. There is no way you can filter the audit logs further. There is no way you can take the audit logs and alert on specific events using the native GUI tools that come in with Active Directory. Right? Take a look at the cheat sheet right here that will show you the different ways administrative privilege can be obtained in Active Directory. It's just a slide share on LinkedIn. You can click on it and you can peruse through it. These are just the different ways an end user can escalate his or her privileges to that of a domain administrator. Now, here's a simple example, right? I told you that Active Directory is hard to administer. I told you that it's very difficult to obtain visibility into Active Directory. And I also told you that it's extremely difficult to monitor the changes that are happening within Active Directory. Here's a simple example, right? Let's say a write permission had to be granted or has to be granted to a bunch of users on a set of nested folders. Now, how would you do that? How would you grant write permissions to a user? You would open a folder, you would check the security tab of the folder, and then you would give the user permissions, right? And how would you view the permissions that are granted? You'll have to open each folder, check the security tab again to view the granted permissions on the ACL. And are these permissions being monitored closely for unauthorized activities? Meaning if there is a read permission or a write permission granted to a critical server, is that being monitored? The truth is yes, the event is being audited, but there are a large volume of audit events that are produced in Active Directory that it makes it impossible for you as an administrator, as a help desk technician, or as a security analyst to zero down and see the critical or sensitive event that's being recorded and decode the reason or decipher the reason behind the audited event. All right, now let's jump in and let's take a look at the different misconfigurations in Active Directory and management mistakes and administration mistakes that can put your Active Directory infrastructure at risk. The first thing that we need to consider when we talk about Active Directory security is authentication, right? That's the role of a domain controller, authentication and authorization in Active Directory. We need to know if the user who's logging onto a domain is actually legitimate or not. That's the first thing that we need to do, right? And how do we perform authentication? We all know it. Active Directory performs authentication via passwords or logons, be it an interactive logon, a remote or a network logon. Passwords are the first line of defense, and passwords double check, verify, and validate the authenticity of the user, right? And we all know this. Active Directory passwords are governed by the password policies, right? These 6 settings that you see, if you head all the way into your domain controller, group policies, and default domain policy, right click edit, computer configuration, policies, Windows settings, security settings, local policies, account policies, and password policy, right? This is these 6 rules, these 6 policies that you see right here are responsible for password creation, management, and security within your Active Directory infrastructure, right? The problem with the password policy is that these 6 settings that you see right here have been around from 2000, right? That's more than 14 years, more than a decade of using the same old 6 settings that you see on the screen right now to create and generate passwords, right? Now, the problem with this is these 6 settings that you see right here apply directly on the domain level, as you can see. So your sensitive users, your privileged users, your standard users, everybody have the same 6 settings for the password policy. All right. Now, granted that Microsoft came up with something called fine-grained password policies, where you could potentially create password policies separately for your users and groups. But the problem with fine-grained password policy is that they still use the same old 6 settings that you see right here. The settings that are a decade old, the settings that have been around from Windows 2000, but they haven't undergone a single update. Right? That's the problem. These settings have not been modernized. These settings have not been updated according to our latest server requirements or security requirements. So these 6 settings have been around for a long time. Attackers have found a way around them, and they allow users to get away with weak passwords, like password at 123, admin at 123, or their birth date, or their dog's name, or their family's name. All right, or even their company's name in some cases. Let me show you a small example as to why Active Directory passwords are extremely weak, right? This is a simple attack that I would be performing. So let me quickly head on to my VM right here, right? And let me open up PowerShell. Now, PowerShell is a built-in tool that comes in with most systems out there, most Windows systems, right from Windows 7. I'm pretty sure you know this. If I head into defaults, let me quickly increase the font size so you can view this in a better manner. Font, and if I increase the size, hopefully this is better. And let me show you a simple attack. Do you see a script right here? It's called a domain password spray script, easily Googleable. You can just get it from the internet, or you could make it yourself if you're good with PowerShell. So this is how it's going to work. All right. I will run a command called PowerShell.exe-exec and then bypass. Now this will allow me to execute any script that I want, regardless of whether it's verified or signed or from an authorized source, as a user with absolutely no privileges. All right, so Ross is a user who has absolutely no privileges right here. So let me show you how the attack works. Here you can see Ross's privileges right here. All right, so I've imported the script. The next step is to invoke domain password spray. Let me give in a very, very predictable, but still a widely used password in most organizations. Okay, so let me quickly head back right here and clear this. Import module./domain password spray.ps1. Well, looks like I will need to head into the desktop to import the module. All right, so it's going to be cd desktop. Here we go. We've gone into it and run the command again. All right, we are good to go. Import module./domain password spray.ps1. Import it and now invoke domain password spray. And let's give in a password. Let's call it password 123. And once I click enter, you can see that the spray would be started. And once I confirm, just within a few seconds, as an end user with no privileges whatsoever, I have the other 80 domain users plain text password right in front of me. Right? It could be password at 123, it could be admin at 123, it could be your organization's name at some number. It's pretty easy to guess predictable passwords, and you can use multiple passwords right here and spray it on your Active Directory domain. Right? Now, the reason I showed you this attack is to just shed light on an important point, that it's pretty easy to perform an attack these days. You don't need privileges. You don't need too much technical knowledge. All you need is motive and some internet. So you can just get a script from the internet, run it using PowerShell, and voila, here you have the passwords. And most antivirus tools will not track the script because it looks like a genuine PowerShell script, right? It's not a third-party software, or it's not a third-party tool downloaded from the internet. This is just a simple script, so it won't be tracked by antiviruses. And this is how you can gain access to domain user passwords. Right now, the reason this attack happened was because the Active Directory's password policy is outdated and still lets your users get away with weak passwords. So I would advise you to start off with identifying weak passwords. We provide a free tool called the Weak Password Reporter tool. If you do need it, just Google it or send me an email and I would be more than happy to share it with you. And this tool will help you find out the weak passwords that are being used in your organization. A completely free tool. So this is how it would look like. All right, so here's my tool. I've given my domain name and my administrator's credentials. And here are all the users whose passwords are weak. The tool takes the passwords from a password list that you see here. There's a password patterns list. By default, there are more than a lakh of password patterns that can be checked. You can add in your own set of lists to this as well, and you can run a password strength check on your organization. All right, so that's just something I wanted to say. The first step to securing passwords is understanding that AD password policy is weak, and two, identifying the weak passwords that are being used for your Active Directory infrastructure. The second thing is that you need to update your password policies. And that is when we come in, that's when AD360 comes in. Just to give you some context, here we go. If I head into AD360 right here, AD Self-Service Plus is a component of AD360 that you see right here. All right, so if I head into AD Self-Service Plus and I hit login, let me close this and show you what I mean right here. Jump into configuration, all right? And I've got a policy configured here. Policies can be applied to users from AD Self-Service Plus, again, a component of AD360 based on OUs, groups, or individual users. So if you have a group with privileged users, you can apply a separate password policy and likewise. So all you gotta do is just select the OUs that you want, hit OK, and the policy would be created, right? Once the policy is created, this is how we can help. Get into Password Policy Enforcer and click on Enforce Custom Password Policy. Now, this is a password policy that meets with your current cybersecurity requirements. This does not replace the Active Directory's password policy, but it works on top of the Active Directory's password policy. Right? I would encourage you to check this out. Take a look at all the features that the policy has. You can ban the use of certain characters. You can ban the repetition of characters. You can restrict certain patterns that we just saw, like password at 1, 2, 3. Right? Patterns such as this can be restricted. You can set a minimum length. You can restrict the number of special characters to be used, the number of symbols to be used. You can restrict repetition from an older username or an older password. All right, so what I would like for you to do is download AD Self-Service Plus, download AD360. Again, AD Self-Service Plus is a component of AD360. Set up a custom password policy for your organization based on the sensitivity of your users, right? And once you are done doing that, just enable it, let it apply to your users, and you are good to go. The password policy will take care of the password strength within your organization, right? As you can see, the password policy works from the native password changes as well. So if a user changes a password using the Control-Alt-Delete screen, the password policy would kick in. And if an admin resets a password for a user, right, whenever a user forgets a password, the password policy would kick in then as well, so that your admin does not use weak passwords like password at 1, 2, 3 when they are being reset for your end users. All right, and not just that, AD Self-Service Plus also offers multi-factor authentication. So if you head into multi-factor authentication right here, you can see there are close to 15 methods of multi-factor authentication that you can set up. And in a nutshell, this is how it's going to work. All right, so let me show you a quick video right here. If I head on to my system and to my files. All right, so let me show you this quick video right here. A user logs on using a password that is governed by the AD Self-Service Plus's password policy. And once the user logs on, the user receives a request on his or her smartphone, right? A notification request. And once the user accepts the request or goes through the two-factor authentication method that was configured, only then will the user be allowed to log on to his or her Active Directory domain. Right? So we've just added another layer of security to traditional password-based authentication because, hey, this is 2020, you will have to update your standards, your cybersecurity standards, and meet with multi-factor authentication needs. All right, so that is the first step that I would like for you to do. Replace your Active Directory password policies. As a matter of fact, not replace, but improve your Active Directory password policies for all your AD users by enforcing a custom policy and add another layer of authentication, which we can help you with. All right, so that's the first thing that I would like for you to do. And you can also monitor your logons right here within another module of 8360, that's AD Audit Plus. You can monitor all your logons. For instance, if your users are logging on to a DC, right? So every logon activity is recorded in AD Audit Plus, so you can find out which user logged on, from which server did the user log on, what's the IP address, what is the authentication mode that was used, and more. All right, so we've completely secured logons. We've enforced a custom policy, we've added multi-factor authentication, and we are also able to monitor logons using 8360. The second step is authorization. Right? Is everybody a domain administrator in your organization? Is everybody using domain admin credentials? Do you grant domain admin credentials liberally? Do you forget to revoke privileged credentials that are granted to your end users? Let me show you a small attack right here. Right? This attack is just to show you that the role of a domain controller can be disguised as well. All right, it's just a simple attack. Let me show you what happens here. A client is temporarily added as a domain controller, and when the client is temporarily added as a domain controller, the client can make changes to Active Directory objects, and once the client has made changes, the client can be unregistered as a domain controller. Let me show you what I mean. If I head on to my VM right here, all right, as you can see, I'm in my VM. Here you can see that I have Mimikatz open right here. Let me double click on it, open it up, right click, and run as administrator. Check out what's going to happen here. All right, so I will run a command called privilege debug. All right, and now I will run a command called process run p, and you can see a new command from session opens up under the system administrator credentials. And once that's open, let me show you what's going to happen here. LSA dump DC shadow. This is an attack using Mimikatz, as you can see. Stack attribute. Right? We can modify any user's attribute. We can inject backdoor changes into Active Directory. My attribute here, let's call it the description attribute. All right, and let's give it a value, and let's call the value I was here. And another thing that we have to mention here is the name of the object, which happens to be normal. Right? So that's going to be object and normal attribute value, and I click enter, and I give in a command again that happens to be LSA dump DC shadow. All right. And as you can see, the client that we are logged into, the end user system, is being registered as a temporary domain controller. And now I will run another command called LSA dump DC shadow. All right, and push. So the change has been pushed by a temporary domain controller that was promoted by me, right, which happens to be a client system, to an Active Directory user object. All right, so let me show you what just happened here. If I head on to my system, open up my Active Directory users and computers, search for the object called normal, here we Go check out the description. I was able to add a backdoor entry into Active Directory by disguising a client system as a domain controller. Right? That is how easy it is to perform an attack these days. That is how simple it is to perform an attack. So how do we track this attack from happening? I will give you the answer to that question just within a few minutes from now. All right, but let's take a look at the different ways Active Directory authorization can be abused. We just secured authentication, but authorization is another part that has to be secured. All right. The first thing that I would like to tell you is to watch for your group memberships within AD, not just your built-in group memberships like your domain admins or your enterprise admins, but also your privileged groups that have access to confidential resources. For instance, any group that has access to a confidential file or folder, and not just that, your cross-platform groups as well, like Exchange, Office 365, all right? Your cross-platform groups that can be used for privilege escalation, that are privileged, have to be monitored as well, and it just doesn't end there. You'll have to look into your nested group memberships as well. All right, so these are the three use cases and three ways groups can be misused with an Active Directory. Number one, a nested group is added to an admin group that has access to sensitive data. So the sensitive data, the access to the sensitive data flows down to the nested group user via indirect membership or via nested membership. All right, number two is you will have to look into your cross-platform groups like your Exchange groups. For instance, the Exchange Windows Permissions group that you see right here gives you right DACL access on the domain object. Let me show you what I mean by that. Any user who is a member of this group, all right, Exchange, wrong spelling, so Exchange Windows Permissions. Any user who's a member of this group has direct write access on the domain controller node that you see right here. So user can simply head into the properties and give himself or any other user any access that he or she wants on the domain controller. This is just one example as to how groups can be abused, right? So a user who potentially has Exchange Windows Permissions group membership can head on to the domain, right click, properties, security, and give himself or herself these permissions, right? Replicating directory changes all, replicating directory changes, and replication synchronization. And when a user has these privileges, the user will be able to request for passwords within Active Directory. That's right, any user with replicating directory changes, as you can see right here, can request for passwords within Active Directory. Right, so that's a main reason you need to monitor group memberships, because group memberships end up giving direct privilege or administrative access onto your Active Directory. Here's another example. This is an example of a dynamic group within Active Directory, where a group can be created for just a specific interval of time. For a few seconds, the attacker can create a dynamic group, add the users he or she wishes to that group, make the changes that he or she wants. For instance, I could create a dynamic group and add the group to a domain admins or an enterprise admins group. And once my work is done as an attacker or a malicious user, the group will vanish automatically from Active Directory, right? Once the time that you see here expires and leaves no trace within Active Directory event logs. This is an example of an invisible group in Active Directory. All right. So monitoring group memberships, nested memberships, and cross-platform group memberships is important. That's something you have to do right away. And you have to monitor each and every group membership. That is imperative. Let me show you a quick example right here. If I head on to my DC, right here, all right, as you can see, I'm logged in as a user called Ross again. I have a simple script here, right? And now if I potentially run the script, let me show you what happens. Use PowerShell, all right, and let me increase the size so you can view this in a better format. Here we go. Head to the desktop, run a command. Okay. And now I will run the script, which happens to be import module slash powerup.ps1. I've imported the script that you see right here. And now if I run a command called write user and MSI, check out what happens. Do you see this right here? This was not there when we started. This is an MSI application that was pushed out by running the script right here. Right? And let me show you what the script does. The script can be used to add a backdoor user into Active Directory, right? Any group that you want. All you got to do is just give it a username, give it a password, and given the group name, and the backdoor user will be added into Active Directory. So that's why it's imperative that you monitor and watch your group memberships, and 8360 can help you with that. So let me show you how 8360 can help. If I head into 8360 and head into reports right here, let me log back in again. Reports, and we have got something called groups for users and users in groups. Let me click on users in groups, right? And I can select any number of groups that I want right here. It could be a domain admins group, it could be administrators group. All I got to do is click a few checkboxes right here. As you can see, I've done here. Once I click OK and hit generate, all the group memberships are in front of me. All right, now in this case, I do not have any users in the groups. So let's just say an administrators group. All right, so here we go. All the members of the administrators group are in front of me. And this magic checkbox that you see right here will help you to view nested or indirect group memberships as well. All right, so 8360 will help you to understand the current state of your group memberships, and not just that, 8360 can also help you to monitor real time if a group membership has been changed. All right, so if I head into recently added members to security groups right here, this will show me all the users who have been added to my security groups within Active Directory. All right, so that's two ways 8360 can help you. Way number one is by understanding the group memberships, by understanding what happened where, and way number two is by change monitoring group memberships. Whenever users are added to group memberships, 8360 will immediately report to you on it and also potentially throw an alert. Let me show you how it works. And also potentially throw you an alert so you can plan your next steps of action immediately. All right, so all you got to do is head into reports, Active Directory, and group management, and here you have your group memberships. All right, a complete list of every user that has been added to the group membership right in front of you. So that's how we can help. We help you understand the permissions. We help you monitor group memberships real time. That's the first use case when it comes to authorization. Watch your group memberships. Second use case is your user object attribute values. Right? For instance, whenever your users attributes are changed, for instance, a simple do not require Kerberos authentication or an SPN value added to a highly privileged or an administrator account, right? Examples such as this are examples of how your AD security can be at risk, because if do not require Kerberos authentication is enabled, as you can see right here, the user can request for any user's ticket, Kerberos ticket granting ticket from Active Directory, and the ticket can be taken offline and can be tracked and can be cracked or brute forced to reveal the plain text password, right? Any administrator that has a service principal name can be subject to a similar attack, where an end user can simply request for the administrator's ticket. The ticket can be taken offline and brute forced to reveal the plain text password. right? So you've got to watch your users' attribute values, simple attribute changes such as this, or a user who has a password never expires set, or a user who potentially has the right to remote into another machine, right? That's the logon rights that your users potentially have. So attributes, user attributes or property values have to be monitored for changes, and 8360 can help you with that. Let me show you what I mean by it. If I head on to AD Audit Plus, as you can see here, a component of 8360, under user management, you've got something called user attribute new and old value. All right. So this will show you all the user attributes that have been changed. For instance, here you can see that there is password never expires enabled for a particular user. Right, so this is an attribute change that is sensitive, that has to be brought to notice, and 8360 can do just that. If a flag is enabled, such as Kerberos pre-authentication not required, if a flag such as that is enabled, those changes would be brought to your notice as well. Basically, any change on your Active Directory objects, attributes or properties can be brought to notice and must be monitored upon. Which brings me to my second point. Do you remember the first attack that we just performed? The attack called the DC shadow attack on our, where we were able to register a domain controller temporarily, right? The attack happened because a computer had an SPN value added to it. That's the way you can track the attack. All right, so if you have a computer in your organization, this is how you can track it. Head into computer management, and you've got something called computer attribute new and old value. All right, and here, if you see a computer attribute, right, any computer within your organization that has an SPN newly added, because an SPN has to be added in order for a computer to be promoted to a domain controller. All right, so if you have a computer with an SPN attribute value added, you can check that right here, and you can configure an alert within 8360 to alert you as an administrator or as a help desk technician. All you got to do is head into configuration, create an alert profile, choose the report right here. You can set a threshold. You can further filter the alert if you need to. You can notify the administrator or help desk via email, via SMS, and you can run a remedial script as well. All right. For instance, the password spray attack that we just performed. If you find a user performing invalid password attempts on your domain, you can alert on it using 8360. You can send an alert to the admin or help desk, and you can execute a script, a mitigation script, a remedial script that will terminate the user session, or that will simply disable the user or shut down the user system. Right? The reports right here will help you with that. As you can see here, I've got my user logon reports. They will help you with that. And the configuration alerts will help you generate alerts and notify you. And not just that, you can run a mitigation action using a custom script as well. All right. Now, the third problem when it comes to authorization is a simple account lockout problem. All of us have seen account lockouts in an organization as administrators or as help desk. All of us have received calls from our end users asking, requesting us to unlock their account, right? But it's really important for you to understand why an account was locked out in the first place, right? You just can't go unlock the account for the user and go on with your daily work, right? I'm pretty sure this must be at the back of your head. You must be wondering, hey, why is this user's account getting locked so many times in a week or in a particular day, right? An account lockout can happen for many, many reasons. It could be a potential process list error where a user's credentials are being used in an older process. It could be an OWA or an active sync configuration that you have in your organization that is using your users' older password credentials that have not been updated. It could be an application, a scheduled task, or a process, or it could be a brute force attack, right? So if I jump into reports right here and head into user logon reports, right? Scroll down, right? Here I have user management, and check out use account lockout analyzer. This will help you analyze the reason why an account is getting locked out. You can see my user Hasi has had his account locked out. And if I click on details, I can find out why exactly an account was locked out, right? Whether it was a process that locked out the account, whether it was an invalid password attempt that locked out the account, whether it was an OWA or an active sync error, or whether it was a radius server error. This will help you zero down the reason behind an account lockout, and that's something you have to do before you unlock an account to ensure that a legitimate user is requesting for his or her account to be unlocked, right? That's just another thing I wanted to say. Next up is domain admin privileges for every task. That's something we end up doing. We end up giving not domain admin privileges necessarily, but privileges, right? Privilege rights to our users when they have to perform tasks, especially when a task requires a certain privilege to be done. Right? Critical tasks such as modification on sites or subnets, activities on the DNS, or Active Directory object tasks such as resetting a user's password or changing permissions on an organizational unit, or simply adding a user to a group or removing a user to a group. Critical tasks such as this, we end up giving domain admin privileges for our users, and that's something that I would like for you to avoid, right? Not just domain admin privileges, any broad privilege granted to your users is a security risk, and that's something that I would like for you to avoid, and this is how you can do it. All right, for site creation or deletion, generally admin privileges are granted, but I would suggest you to create a group and give the group these rights: create all child objects and delete all child objects for site creation or deletion in your organization. So this way you've cut down one place where domain admin privileges is being used. Another way is to, another reason domain admin privileges are used is to manage your DNS, right? For that, I would like for you to add your users to the DNS admin groups where your users receives the right to configure a DNS server, start, stop, pause or restart a DNS server, create forward or backward lookup zones, and more. Right, so use the DNS admins group to delegate activities on the DNS. But a little known fact is that any user who's a member of the DNS admins group has the right to execute any DLL on a domain controller, right? It could be a DLL that could escalate the user's privileges to that of an administrator or a domain admin. So you will have to watch users who are being added to the DNS admins group, and you will also have to watch users who are being given privileges on the DNS of your Active Directory, right? Explicit ACL entries that are granted to your users. That's something that have to be monitored as well. And you can do that with 8360, as you can see right here. All right, so let me show you what I mean by this. If I head on to my VM, click on DNS. Here we go. This is my DNS. This is where we given privileges. If any of my user has privileges on any of the forward or backward lookup zones that you see right here, right? It could be an explicit ACL. Let me show you what I mean. Properties and security. I could give my user privileges like this, or I could add my user privileges to, I could give my user privileges by adding him to the DNS admins group that we have in Active Directory. Here we go, this is the group. No matter how a user receives privileges, that must be monitored and that must be tracked, and 8360 can help you with that. All right, all you got to do is head into the AD Audit Plus component of 8360, and we've got something called DNS changes right here that will help you watch whenever DNS nodes are added, removed, modified, zones are added, removed, modified, and permission changes on your Active Directory DNS. Right? Everything is brought to notice, everything is monitored, and you can configure alerts to alert you whenever such activities happen. Right? And for the DNS admins group, we've got the group membership reporting right here. Keep in mind that all of the changes that I'm showing you right now, all of the monitoring in 8360 is real time, right? So every time something happens, something sensitive happens in your Active Directory, you will be alerted immediately. All right, so this is how you can monitor site changes within 8360. Just head into AD Audit Plus component, check sites, and you've got all the site changes permission right there. Another problem in Active Directory is your delegation wizard. Right? Now, I'm pretty sure you would have seen this. I'm pretty sure you would have worked with this. If I head into Active Directory and right click on an OU, I can delegate control to an OU, and this is where the delegation wizard comes in, where I could delegate control to an OU or an object to my end users. I can give my users certain privileges. But the problem with this is, right, granted that you can give in privileges, right? Here you go, my group just got a privilege right here. But is there a way for you to check where the privileges have been granted? The only way you have to do that is by checking each OU within your organization, right click on it, click properties, and check the security tab if a user has been granted privileges. That's the only GUI way for you to do it, right? Now there is a wizard to grant privileges, that's good, but there is no wizard to view the granted privileges or even to revoke the granted privileges. Right? This is just using the Active Directory delegation wizard. So let's say you have to keep a checklist of all delegated activities in your organization, right? How would you do that? Because many users require different privileges, and documenting them is not a feasible thing to do, right? That's when 8360 comes in, where 8360 can delegate activities to your users in Active Directory, right? Best part about 8360 is that it does not modify your users' native privileges. So let me quickly show you what I mean by that. If I head on to 8360 and head into delegation, right, and help desk roles, so I can create a role for my users right here. So this is how it would work. Let's call it a HR role, right? I can create a role for my users. Let's say I want my user to create users, reset their passwords, modify the group memberships. And once I click save, the role would be created. And once the role is created, all I got to do is head into technicians, right? Add in my Active Directory user as a technician and apply the required role to my user, right? Now, all of this, all of the role creation and assignment that we just did does not modify the user's native Active Directory privileges. Everything happens through the tool. So this is non-invasive delegation. All right. If I head into help desk audit report and audit report here, I can find out all the activities that were performed by my help desk technicians configured within AD Manager Plus. All right. If I head into help desk reports right here, you see something called technicians report that will help you maintain a checklist of all permissions that were delegated to your end users within Active Directory. Right, so that's how 8360 can help you with delegation. You can delegate multiple tasks, granular tasks to your users, and not just that, the delegation is non-invasive, so you're not messing with your users' native privileges. And number 3 is you can track every activity performed by your technicians with audit reports, and you can maintain a checklist of activities that were performed. All right, and like always, we have got AD Audit Plus, again, component of 8360 to monitor every change that is happening on your users or on your other objects, such as your computer objects or any permission changes on your OUs. Right, every activity is monitored and is brought to notice immediately within AD Audit Plus. So you can delegate securely, but if a user makes a change, a critical change, like resetting a password or adding a user to a group or modifying a user's attribute or modifying a user's explicit ACL permission changes, everything is brought to notice within 8360 as well, because it monitors your AD infrastructure real time. Next up, we've got Active Directory group policies. This is something that I would like for you to look into, because group policies cannot be ignored, right? They have direct control over your organization's network, right? They directly control what your users can or cannot do. Now, I'm pretty sure you have a GPO structure of your own, and here are a few tips on the slide right now that you could follow to improve your group policy structure. But let's face it, no one has the time to restructure group policies and mess with the users and mess with the configuration of our Active Directory. So let me just give you one small tip right here. Right? Whether you have your own group policy structure or whether you use a Microsoft tiered model for group policies, ensure that all your group policy changes are brought to notice, right? Like group policies created, enabled, disabled, group policies linked to OUs, group policies unlinked from OUs, or any sensitive group policy changes. As you can see, changing of an account lockout threshold is something that has to be brought to notice. Changes in user rights assignment, like allow logon locally or via remote desktop, or a user given a right to backup or restore file and directories, right? Or an administrative template change where a user is given always install elevated privileges, or any security options where anonymous access of your network shares can be enabled. Changes such as this must be brought to your notice. If a help desk technician or an administrator is logging onto Active Directory, making a group policy change, that has to be monitored, and AD360 can help you with that. All you got to do is head into AD Audit Plus, and you've got GPO management and GPO settings changes right here. Right? So whenever your GPOs are linked, unlinked, modified, deleted, or a new GPOs created, all of those changes come in here, and your internal GPO settings, right? Such as your administrative template settings, your user rights template settings, your user rights assignment settings, everything is brought to notice, and you can see details of the settings that are enabled within your GPOs as well. And of course, like always, you can enable an alert to alert you instantly if your GPOs are being modified. All right. Next up, and last but not the least, we've got data modification on your storage devices. Right now, we are speaking about Active Directory infrastructure. We've secured Active Directory to an extent. We've spoken about logons. We spoke about groups. We spoke about attribute changes. We spoke about DNS. We spoke about sites. But an important thing to remember is your data across your storage devices within Active Directory. Right now, granted that AN and AD infrastructure data can be stored across Windows file servers, NetApp, EMC, or Windows failover clusters, the list simply goes on, and you will have to monitor any data changes that's happening in your Active Directory infrastructure, no matter where the data is located in. It could be a NetApp server, it could be an EMC server, or it could be a straightforward Windows server. Right? Here's an example. How would you know if someone inherits a write or a read privilege from a network share or from a nested folder structure? Someone has not been granted privileges explicitly, but they have inherited the privilege, right? Changes such as that must be tracked, and AD Audit Plus can help you with that here as well. If I head into File Audit, here you can see all the changes across your different data storage devices in your organization, your file servers, your file clusters, your NetApp, your EMC, your Synology NAS, and let me head into File Audit Reports right here. This will show you all changes that are happening across your files and folders in your organization, like files moved, deleted, copied, the ACLs or the security tab of files or folders modified, the SACLs, right, or the auditing of file or folders that has been enabled. You can do the same for your network shares. You can check it out for user-based reports, server-based reports. We offer you complete customization right here. You can go back in time and check. You can check your file server reports across your multiple objects, as you can see right here, across multiple computers. If you have multiple Active Directory domains, you can check files or folders for your multiple domains by just checking, by just selecting the domain from the drop-down right here, and the list simply goes on. Right? And not just file and folder activities across your data storage devices, but also your critical configuration file or folders, right? Like your system root folder, your C drive that's being modified, right? That has to be brought to notice. And we've got file integrity monitoring right here that will help you monitor changes that happen to your configuration files, your database folders, your application folders. Basically, your critical domain configuration or your root folders can be monitored with file integrity monitoring. And with File Audit, you can monitor your data, your company sensitive data across your storage devices. All right, so I think we have covered everything. within Active Directory, at least the most of the important things. And here are a few more tips that you can follow. For instance, your KRBTGT account in Active Directory is responsible for generating TGTs for Kerberos, right? Ensure you reset the password for that account. I'm pretty sure most of us haven't reset the password for our KRBTGT account. So it's important that you reset the password at least twice, right? Every 180 days. So the idea is this: open your KRBTGT account, reset the password for it, wait for it to replicate to your domain controllers, and reset the password for it again. All right. This will help you ensure that ticket granting the account responsible for generating TGTs within your Active Directory is secure and cannot be compromised. Because if an attacker gets access to the KRBTGT account, he or she can generate tickets for whichever account he or she wants within Active Directory. It could be an admin account as well. All right. Deploy Microsoft Local Administrator Password Solution for your local admin accounts, not your Active Directory admin accounts. For your local admin accounts, adopt Microsoft Local Administrator Password Solution, because this is a solution that will help you rotate the passwords for your local admin accounts, right? Your Active Directory admin accounts can be secured with 8360's password policies, but your local admin accounts, you'll have to use Microsoft Labs. All right. And once you've configured it, passwords for your local admin accounts will automatically be rotated, and ensure that only the authorized users in your organization have access to this attribute. This attribute stores the Labs password for your local admin accounts in plain text. That's right. This is Microsoft solution. Password is stored in plain text. So you'll have to ensure that only authorized users have access to this attribute, and we help you with that as well. So if I head into AD Audit Plus, reports, scroll down, we've got something called Labs Audit right here that will show you if a user has queried the Labs attribute, right, to read the plain text password, right? Here's the audit report right here. Last but not the least, you've got your DSRM with an Active Directory, your directory services restored mode. This is like a break glass account for your Active Directory. It helps you to boot into an emergency mode, a safe boot mode, just in case your Active Directory crashes, and ensure that you reset the password for this particular account at regular intervals as well. All right, these are just 3 additional tips that I wanted to give you, and let me show you what I mean by it. All right, so here we go. Within here, you will be able to find your directory service. Let me show you DSRM. Here we go. Recently set directory service admin password, right? This is something that you have to monitor, because this is a break glass account, allows you to log into your Active Directory just in case it crashes. So you'll have to reset passwords for this. That's tip number 1. And tip number 2 is you always monitor whenever this account is having its password reset, right? That's something you have to do, because this can give attackers direct emergency access to your Active Directory. All right. It's also important that you monitor for suspicious activities across your endpoints, like your member servers, your workstations, your workgroup machines, if you have them, right? For example, USB devices plugged into your workstations or your member servers. A new process started on your member servers. Malicious scripts like the password attack or the group membership addition script that we just ran today, right? So that's something that has to be monitored as well. Malicious scripts have to be monitored as well. And of course, simple deviations in user behaviors, and we can help you with that as well. So let me show you what I mean by that. If I head into server audit right here, this will help you audit changes across your member servers, your workstations, your printer servers, your workgroup machines, if you do have them, where you can audit for changes on them, such as changes to their files or folders, or if a USB device has been plugged into your member servers, or if a malicious PowerShell script like a domain password spray script that we just ran is run on your member servers within your organization. Right? So the server audit tab within 8360 will help you audit changes across your servers. And we also have something called user behavior analytics right here. So user behavior analytics, in short, will help you to monitor any changes within your user behaviors, right? For instance, if a user is logging on to a host for the first time in a long time, that's anomalous. That's a behavior that's outside the user's normal behavior baseline, right? So that can be reported, that can be alerted on. If a new process is created or eliminated, that can be reported, that can be alerted on. If a bunch of files are being moved, are being changed, are being deleted, are being modified, that is something malicious and that has to be alerted on. If there is a large amount of user management activity happening on your domain, right? Like user accounts getting locked out too many times, or users being moved, being copied, being deleted, or a bunch of permissions being changed on user accounts. All of these are anomalies, and with the help of machine learning and artificial intelligence, we will be able to monitor the user behaviors and show you if there's been any change in the established or a predefined baseline for your user behaviors. All right, so that's just something else we can do. Not just AD, your cloud deployments like Azure Active Directory that you may be using within your organizations are also at the risk of compromise, and AD360 can help you with that as well. All right, here you see we've got Azure AD that will help you watch for changes across your Azure Active Directory environment as well. So Manage Engine AD360 is one console for your hybrid AD security, for your complete AD security, and for your Azure AD security. All right, now before I end the webinar, I would like to run a quick poll where you will see a few questions flash across your screen, and if you could help me out with the answers, that would be really helpful. So I will quickly push a poll on your screen, and if you can help me out with the answers, that would be really helpful. Just a few seconds, and I promise I will be out of your hair. Thank you for your responses. Thank you. I hope you found this session informative. There's a lot that has to be covered in Active Directory, and I tried to squeeze it in within 60 minutes. But then again, this is a good start to securing your Active Directory. All right. And there's a lot more that has to be covered if you have to secure Active Directory completely as well. Thank you for your responses, guys. Just a few seconds, just a minute or so, and I promise I will be out of your hair, and I will be answering your questions too. Perfect. Thank you so much for your responses. I would love to hear your thoughts if you found the presentation informative, if you found the session informative. Again, Active Directory is a huge infrastructure, and I hope we covered all the important aspects of it. I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for your responses, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for your responses. Perfect. Thank you for your responses. I hope you found this session informative. There's a lot we had to cover, and do not worry, recording will be sent to you to your email IDs soon, within the next, within today or within the next day. And you can peruse through the entire recording again. You can share it with your teammates if you have to. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to drop an email to me at abi@manageengine.com. That's abi@manageengine.com, and I would be more than happy to help you out. All right. Now, I would be here for the next 10 to 15 minutes. So if you have any questions, please feel free to keep them coming using the Q&A tab, and I'd be more than happy to answer them. And of course, if you have questions later during the day, just shoot me an email anytime, and I'd be more than happy to help you out. I hope you found this session informative. I will be muting myself now, but until then, I hope you have a wonderful day today. Stay home and stay safe.